Right, doing a timing belt on one of these. If you've got, yours is a later car, so yours will have the two tensioners like this. If you've got an earlier car, pre-94 one, I think it's when they changed the hydraulic tappets, they only have one, and the tensioner, the tension is done off of the water pump. The water, you can tell by the water pump's got little slots in there, and it's done off that. But also the bottom pulley is bigger. It sits bolts in there, on there, and it doesn't have that. Timing belt kits for these later engines is becoming increasingly difficult to find. Gates at the minute, as far as I know, unless they've stocked up again, don't do a kit anymore. I've gone to Dayco, and you can get Dayco stuff quite easy. I think you can get Quentin Hazel stuff quite easy as well, but I think it's listed for a 960, not a 940. And oh yeah, I think it's called an AG1, which is the LT equivalent of this engine. So anyway, when you're doing it, you obviously need to make sure that the camshaft, is locked. You can just do it. You don't need a fancy tool. You can just do it with I think it's a 4.5mm thick piece of flat steel, cut out to the correct shape. So that saves that a bit easier. Obviously, make sure that the timing mark with the gearbox is on. Turn her over. God, the new built engines have got loads of compression. Oh, Jesus Christ! There we go. It's on that point. Now, because I ain't got a gearbox on it, I've put a bell housing on it, and then just mark the mark there. So that's the point you want, not the 1/6 topmost center point. If you do it to that and then lock the cam in place, it will the valves will hit pistons and it won't be very good. So anyway, that's the mark you want, the 0 mark. When you come to putting things back on, the best way to tension at the timing belt at the front is slip the belt on with the tensioner locked off. I think it's clockwise. If you put an Allen key in there, lock the tensioner off when it's fully sort of slack position. What that'll do is then you can slide the belt on, make sure the cam's locked, like I say, and make sure the pulley is loose. You know, it's on a taper at the top there. If you just sort of crack the taper off, and then just make sure the bolt, so it's just sort of basically the pulley can slide on the cam, right? But you don't want any play on there. If you put that in, make sure it's at top dead center, and make sure the cam's locked off. Put the belt on as much as possible. Bring the tension with the pulley. Pull the tension onto the drive side of the belt, and then lock off the lock off the tensioner, and then the tension will be set correctly by the spring that's on the tensioner. That's why these engines, the later engines, are so much easier to do. The earlier engines are a pain in the arse, because what you have to do is tension it on the drive side, and that's never a good thing. Some manufacturers do it anyway, but it's a lot more difficult. So these later engines are much better for that reason. So if you just tension it off the spring tension off of there, and then lock the tensioner off, and then nip the cam up, and then put your what do you call it, injection pump pulley on. Again, this point is on a slide, so if you just crack it off, this pulley will spin, on the cam. So you sit that on there, get it so it's roughly right with your timing tool, if you haven't got a timing tool, what I use is I've got a special socket, which is more or less the correct. That's the one. More or less the correct size, and that sits in there. When it's timed anyway. That sits in there. I always crank the injection pump over as much as you can this way, and that gives you a bit more access to the glow plugs number 5 and 6. It's actually possible, you know, if you haven't got bendy fingers or whatever you need to do it without it. So that's what I do, but that does mean that the time marks doesn't line up on there, and it also means that when you put the your timing tool in there, it's not lined up correctly with the pump, so it won't be anywhere near out. But it's still a good idea to use it anyway, just to make sure you're on the right cylinder, sort of thing. So as you probably see in the manual, that point there needs to be lined up with that point there. Yeah, and that means number 1 cylinder is firing. Again, make sure that you're timing it with the cam lobes pointing up in the air, and then lock it off, set it to a mil timing. That's always the best, seems to be the best sort of compromise between advanced and noisy. Do that, and then you need to lock the cam off. Again, just nip it with your socket. It's a pain in the arse when the engine's in the car because you've got the firewall in the way. Lock it off, and then take all your timing tools out, and then spin the engine over 2 revolutions, so then it comes back round to the same point. Spin the engine over twice, and then check with your timing with your injection timing tool. The most accurate thing then is the injection timing tool, because that gives you an exact point. If you've got the camshaft timing right, then this will be right. So again, just spin it over twice and check that with your tool in the end of there, that it comes back to a millimetre. You know, if it comes to 9.5, don't worry about it. 0.95 mil, don't worry about it at all. It's going to be fine. I think I was looking at it, and you've basically got about 15 degrees of cam timing before pistons hit valves. So you know, if you're within a degree, you'll be okay, which is about 0.05 on the cam. When you're putting the covers back on, this is the one that I've messed up on twice. Is when you're putting this lower shield back on there, like that, you need to make sure that the fan pulley bracket, I couldn't get the word there, does not clamp up like that, because it will. If you go and put this on like that, and then if you can sort of see, I'm terrible at cameraman, I really am. It will fit. See what I mean? If you bolt it up like that, you need to make sure that it goes behind it, not in front of it. That is crucial. I've done that twice. If you do it, it will not ruin the timing belt. What will happen, if you set the tension correctly, is it will just stop this tensioner for a little while, and it's not good. But it doesn't take much force to stop it at all. So if you do it, it will just stop this, and the belt will slip on it. I've done that twice out of three timing belts now. So just make sure you don't do that. That's probably the stupidest mistake you can do. Like I say, when you do fire up, just check that that's spinning. It might even be worth putting a little mark on it. In fact, I'll do that, because I'll end up doing the same mistake again when I put this engine in the car. There we go. See? Then you know if it's spinning round nicely. So yeah, so when you're doing it, once you've got all the pulleys in, just gently with a socket on the end there, just turn it over several times, and just do a double check on your injection pump timing tool. Spin it over, check it, spin it over again. You know, if you hear any clunks, you've got something wrong. The easiest mistake to do probably with timing it is, like I said earlier, instead of going off of the 0 mark, if you timed it, Jesus, if you timed it off of this point here, 1/6, that means that when you've got no gearbox on, I think they must have timed it off of this point here, that little noggin there. So I think that's probably how you're supposed to do it when you haven't got a gearbox on it. I've only just seen that actually. It's quite handy to notice. So that is top dead centre for 1 and 6, but it's at the top of the block, not down here. So if you time it there, you're nearly like quarter of a turn out. So that's why valves will hit. So yeah, other than that, it's fairly straightforward jobby really. It's a nice job once you get it right, and it's very satisfying to watch all the new belts whizzing around and all the rest of it. But yeah, I don't think I've missed anything. Oh yes, the thing that everybody does wrong, that torque. Yeah, as you probably know, that's responsible for just about every failure of a D24 engine ever recorded. This tool is very important, right? That tool is very, very important. You can do it without it, but if you do it without it, the torque on that point there is 250 foot-pounds, right? Now I struggled to find a torque wrench that was 1/2 inch drive and would do 250 foot-pound. That's right at the top of the range of my big torque wrench, and trust me, it's a big bloody torque wrench. There's still 1/2 inch drive anyway. If you go off that point, it can be done, but the torque, I think I worked it out at 450 foot-pounds. 450 foot-pounds. So it can be done, but that's a lot of torque down there. Make sure you do that, and make sure you put those 4 bolts in. The torque on those is 20 Newton meters. Torques on those, it says in the green book that you should do 100 Newton meters for both. Yeah, that's right. Do that. It is a pain in the arse to get one of those pulleys off again when you've taught that bolt to 100 Newton meters, but it is right. So, like I say, just check and check and check before you do the final torques. So yeah, that's it really. Yeah, it's nice job. Yeah, take care, mate.